to the Raptor Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined by the Fan Morning Show's Blake Murphy.
Good morning. Afternoon. What time is it?
You're usually here in the morning. You're usually here at 6 a.m.
Yeah, I usually get in around like 5:20.
Yeah, that's aggressive. That's aggressive. You know what? You're here for my show earlier than I'm here for my show.
It's true.
Which is not something I should be telling Dan Tillman personally, but shout out to the big man. As a reminder, by the way, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel Monday to Friday at 3 p.m.
So I was going to say, this is my Tuesdays are usually a bit of a mess because I do this show as well. And today I was like, I'll stack some meetings in between, and then like maybe I'll work on an article or something, and I'll just hang out around the campus here. And then they were like, oh, yeah, don't wear black for the YouTube stream. So then I had to go home.
I mean, it's good that you did because this sweater is heat.
Tell you, I didn't look this night's at 4:30, getting up and leaving my place.
I was going to say, yeah, what would you guys think of turning the cameras on for 6 a.m.?
Absolutely not. It's bad enough we turn the mics on at 6 a.m. I don't need the camera as well.
Damn, okay.
Ailish and JD would probably be fine. They come in and they look like it's the middle of the day. And then I come in like in joggers and
it's okay.
Yeah.
People can only see waist up. You can wear joggers. I was in joggers yesterday. People didn't know this, but now I'm revealing it. All right, Blake, usually we're here to talk about really hardcore basketball stuff. And you know what? Today is no exception. We're just going to nerd out about basketball because Alex is no longer here to take the show in a direction that is not basketball. First off, actually, a piece of news from Shams Charania. Beginning January 15th, any NBA player who is not fully vaccinated will be unable to enter Canada to play games in Toronto. The Canadian government will require all individuals entering Canada to be fully vaccinated. If a player cannot show full proof of vaccination and misses a game in Toronto, he will be subject to a reduction of compensation and may be subject to fine, suspension, or other actions. And NBA teams have now informed, the NBA has now informed all teams today. So
this was a little bit of a weird one to come out because I think the only part of this we didn't already know was the money part. We knew that the national interest exemption was being removed on January 15th. And that was like, even last week when the Wizards were here, I was getting a lot of questions of, will Bradley Beal play? Is Bradley Beal coming? Because at last update, Bradley Beal was a vaccination holdout and the Wizards were coming here. And I think he was the first notable name like that. But no, January 15th. So I think we've known this was coming. And the only news here is really that they won't get paid now.
Yeah. Not the first for Shams, by the way. But anyway, let's just keep that moving.
I don't mean it as a shot at Shams. I just mean it like we've been talking about this and the like potential second half home court advantage. Like I can't remember if I joked about it with you or if I joked about it on the Fan Morning Show, but like the Raptors having 10 of 11 at home right before that comes into effect feels like a slightly missed opportunity. But really, the missed opportunity is these people who won't get vaccinated. Just do it.
Do you think the NBA purposely scheduled the season like that?
Yeah, because the government knows what they're doing far enough in advance for the NBA to plan.
Yeah, you know what? Fair enough. Thanks to a Twitter user, Hey Halima, who went through the teams and counted basically which players are reportedly unvaccinated, and something like 16 teams will be potentially affected. It would be 17, except Washington's already played both their home games here in Toronto, so Bradley's, I guess, okay until, I don't know, the play-in game or something. So that's
what are we estimating? Because at last update, it's about 3% of the league is unvaccinated, which if every roster was full with two ways, which we know it's not, but that would take us to 15.3 players. So I'm guessing the number's around 15 when you account for the open roster spots and stuff.
I mean, it's something like that. And I guess for some of these players, like, I guess the reporting around it isn't as fervent as it was in training camp, where we were getting like,
because if you're not
alert every single day.
if you're not Kyrie, and like everyone else has had the freedom of movement and stuff, and just like, I can't imagine, like, what our access is like right now. I can't imagine beat writers in those places are like, oh, did this guy practice with a mask? Is this guy walking around without one? It's a hard thing to figure out. And like, really, it's like, it's not an everyday story, but it is now.
Yeah, it is now.
As of January 15th.
Because when we see players come to Toronto and they're not here, we'll know. All right, moving on to players that are not here. Wow.
Yeah, you know who else isn't playing?
Damn, this is tough.
Ever again, apparently.
So the latest update on OG Anunoby and Cambridge from Nick Nurse at today's Raptors practice is, quote, they're out for the foreseeable future, end quote. Not surprising, I guess, but at the same time, that is not an encouraging update. Are there any silver linings from this, Blake Murphy?
Any silver linings? No, unless you are a content creator. And in that case, at least we can stop doing the like, for now, oh, what does the lineup look like when everyone is healthy? Or what does the rotation look like when everyone is healthy? Because, I mean, OG Anunoby was out and it sounded like a couple weeks. And then he was suddenly day-to-day and questionable, and now he's out indefinitely again. So there's obviously been a setback there.
Yeah.
Kem Birch hasn't. So Nick Nurse said that there's nothing structural that's been revealed, but the swelling hasn't gone down.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the second time he sat out this year with that knee swelling. So obviously it's a persistent issue. And it reminds me, I'm not saying that like this is what's going to happen, but there was a year where Patrick Patterson was like day-to-day for like 17 games.
2017. I remember that season well.
And then he had off-season knee surgery.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's that, but like sometimes we don't know about knees. Like I remember Ronald Roberts with Raptors 905, like just kept having knee soreness and they couldn't figure out what it was. And then eventually he's just playing in a league way below his talent because his knees can't get healthy.
Yeah.
Knees are not great. I hope this is not the case with Kem Birch. I'm talking myself into being way more negative than I anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the worst case scenario, but I mean, it is reminiscent of that season, which, by the way, that season, the Raptors did end up trading for PJ Tucker and Serge Ibaka at the trade deadline. No, I think they would have done that regardless of how, Patrick Patterson's health was.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
So this will be the 10th game missed for each of them. 10 in a row for OG on Wednesday, and then Birch 3 and then 7. So I guess, the silver lining is there's at least a little bit of stability of if you're Nick Nurse and you're coming to work every day trying to figure out who you're going to have, and you can try to optimize around that, and you can not do the like, oh, we can plan for this and then we can plan for this if Kem's back. Precious is your starting center. Your starting lineup is what it is, and you don't have a bench center. That's what you're operating with right now.
I was asking for silver linings more like, Yuta Watanabe, my favorite player. Can he get some minutes here now?
See, I think Yuta was going to play regardless. Though.
Okay.
He's been really
enough.
good.
You know what? Fair enough. You're right. But, I mean, it was interesting to hear Nick talk about Yuta the other day he said, he plays so hard, he gets tired really quickly. So they do have to still watch his minutes a little bit. Not saying Yuta has to not play hard, but just like, you got to be able to at least play like 25 minutes a game, for example, when called upon in the NBA.
Yeah, and this is a thing where, like, if you're a true depth team and you're healthy, maybe you can get away with that, right? Like, maybe Yuta Watanabe can play the last 4 minutes of the first quarter, and then you find another 4 for him in the middle of the second, and then you extend those in the second half. Whatever, you can get your way to 16, 18, 20 minutes that way. But if you need him for 25 minutes a night, which, he's averaging 17 minutes right now, and he's only been back for 5 games, and for the foreseeable future, I think he's a 20-minute-a-game guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I mean, I do think that obviously with OG being hurt, you're going to need more of the defense from the wing, and I think Utah's providing that. The three-point shooting is not even in the same ballpark as OG. OG was launching like 9 threes a game.
Yeah, 7 of 17 though.
Okay, he's 7 of 17, but how many threes in a game will Utah take? That's the thing for me. I think that OG was starting to take some off the dribble stuff. Obviously the catching and shooting is maybe in terms of efficiency, roughly the same, but I think Utah's less willing to take the shot rather than OG.
I will say that Utah coming up from 4.5 threes per 36 to 7.3.
Yeah, that's good. That's great.
And like, if I'm Nick Nurse, I'm in his ear saying more. Because he shot 40% last year on a smallish sample. He's at 40% this year on a smallish sample. He has an okay G League sample. Like, this guy can shoot it.
Yeah.
And there's like that element of sometimes you're a little too selfless. And you want to keep, you want to play advantage basketball and turn one small advantage into a bigger one. But I'm sure Nurse is in his ear to let it fly even more.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, the most important sign is Utah passes the me watching them shoot around eye test. It checks out both in practice and pregame after halftime when they come back to warm up. Utah's money on that. So yeah, I mean, there's not that many silver linings here. Really, I think between the two of them, obviously OG is much more impactful. Luckily, the Raptors do have much more depth at OG's specific spot. The center position without Birch, it's been interesting to me because some games I definitely really noticed it. Other games, I think it really is an opportunity here for Precious to play a lot of minutes, which this is a development season, and I think his development is pretty key. And he has really, I don't have that many complaints in the sense that I know what I can expect from him. And if he can make some hustle plays and be good defensively, I'm generally happy with that. And he has been pretty good on that front. I mean, I'm not, you know what? Let's go with the sports radio hot take question. Is Precious Achiuwa underrated? defensively?
Well, defensively maybe.
Because there you go. That's all I was going to ask for. No, offensively, I think he's properly rated.
Yeah, I think, and I think that sometimes the fact that he is a frustrating player to watch offensively makes some of the defense harder to appreciate, because it's like, oh, you made this terrific play and then you sprinted up the court with the ball and then you shoot 38% as a center, which is not great.
It's historically low.
Yeah. So the finishing has to come around. Obviously, there's some, I mean, he doesn't make a lot of turnovers on offense, but there's a little bit of like flow stopping.
Would you kind of miss shot as a turnover? Because sometimes.
Yeah. But yeah, the defense has been really good. And like, I know that he's not the traditional rim protector and he's averaging under a block per 36. And, he's the best rebounder on the team, but it's still not elite or anything like that. But look at how the Raptors want to play defense when things are, normal and they anticipate being a winning team. And Precious is showing the level of role versatility that they expect. And maybe you don't want him banging against Joel Embiid, but guess what? There are like 5 guys in the league that you're comfortable with banging with Joel Embiid. And even then, he'll do what he did last night and pull out a bunch of mid-range jumpers.
Yeah.
So I think that's fine. And I think the fact that he can like comfortably switch onto guards gives you some freedom here in terms of how you're going to defend other teams. And like, you don't want Fred on a center, but you can trust Fred on a 2 or a 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that only really opens up if Precious can switch around. And then you can obviously switch Barnes, Siakam, Precious as needed, kind of. So important steps there for him. And then I guess in terms of the center position, are you letting yourself get back in on Boucher after the bounce back game?
I'm not out on Boucher in the sense that like I'm not confident in him contributing to wins. I think he's a productive player. I don't know about like his long-term fit here, but in this season in particular, I think there is upside in terms of what he can do. I mean, there's only upside, let's be real. There has been up in terms of production at all from him so far. But, the other game, I thought it was interesting. To me, if the more he plays the center role offensively, the more he's involved in screens and stuff like that, I think it's just natural for him to thrive in that role. Not only because I think that's just where he's best used offensively, but also just that's where he's most comfortable offensively. Like he actually has lots of reps playing as a center, playing in screen role. And, I wasn't surprised necessarily that he was more productive in that game, because without Kem coming off the bench, obviously you don't have, a true center, quote unquote, with Kem in the middle. But at the same time, you have Chris. And as long as you can sort of surround him with enough forwards and long forwards, for me, like I think that you're going to see better production from him. Like, is that what you're seeing too? Is that this season they've asked him to play a lot on the wing, and I just don't think he has that in him.
No, and it's tough because like obviously there are some things he can't do as a center, right? But I also think at this point, like I think I'm done with the idea that Chris Boucher is going to develop that 3-point shot. And I know he had a pretty solid year there last year, hitting 38.3%. But that is an outlier season if you look at his college, his G League, and his NBA. And I don't think
it was kind of a hot 2 months.
Yeah,
I'm not to put it down at all. Not really. He was really good for the Raptors last year.
But I thought Boucher's quote the other night was great about how he forgot, as he was trying to fix his 3-point shot, he forgot about all the other things that Chris Boucher does. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's just like he naturally gets into those things more as a 5 than a 4. So yeah, if you were coming up with the optimized version of Chris Boucher, it's probably more of a 4.
Yeah.
But the current version of Chris Boucher is better at center. And you look at, who are you coming up against? Okay, well, let's say the next 3 games Kem Birch is out.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chris Boucher is your bench center unless you go super small. OKC has Derek Favors and Mike Muscala as their bigs off the bench.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
The New York Knicks have Obi Toppin and Nerlens Noel.
Yeah, I'm mostly okay with that. I mean, if
a little tougher on the glass.
It'd be great if Boucher could, stretch him out a little bit. But right now, no one's respecting an 18% 3-point shooter.
And then the Kings have Marvin Bagley and Alex Len.
Raptors legend Alex Len. Going back to Sacramento,
Yeah, and Kenneth Faried, all-star Marvin Bagley. The big time, hey, should the Raptors try to get this guy?
Speaking of, should the Raptors get this guy? Are we going to move on to the Indiana Pacers?
Yeah, I teed those up just to kind of get your comfort level with like, hey, you got a little stretch here. Yeah, it's not the toughest of weeks to be down a center.
No, it's not. And I think Utah coming back gives you more of a defensive stability with the second unit. I think Delano has been really promising on that front. And we'll definitely talk about the 905 because I finally have seen a full 905 game this season. 8 games in.
Did Utah acknowledge you?
What?
Did Utah acknowledge you at the game?
No, I wasn't at the game.
Oh, I thought you were there. That's why I made the concessions
No,
joke.
I live way too far from Scotiabank to go there for 11 a.m. I'm sorry. It takes me like an hour to get there.
Unbelievable. It would have, the timing would have worked out perfectly for you to just come here after. The game was at Scotiabank.
And I wanted to, but I've gotten this bad habit of like staying up until like 3 a.m. Something that, you would not be able to do obviously on the morning show. But for me, now that I work every day at 1 p.m. essentially.
Yeah. Next time I ask you to do our show, I'm gonna specifically ask you to cut your night short to come on. We'll get you at the 6 a.m. block.
Listen, I might be up, but unfortunately I missed the game. But I am. To your point, yes, I am comfortable with Boucher in some of those roles. Yeah. I think that there's more help defensively off the bench now. I don't want to see, for example, like Svi with Malachi in the backcourt and then Boucher at the center, because now I'm like, okay, now I only trust two guys on the floor to defend. And one of them's a rookie in Banton who's playing 3 randomly in that lineup. But at the same time, I think
like kind of power forward in the 905 game yesterday. Defensively anyway.
By the way, he was great in the 905 game. We're gonna get to that because that is ultimately why you're here. But the other thing is, I did want to touch on a couple of league items.
Yeah.
So the Pacers are officially having a fire sale. Shams Charania is reporting that Karis LeVert's on the table, Domantas Sabonis is on the table, Miles Turner's on the table. Elsewhere, Damian Lillard apparently, this is according to Woj, Dame's camp is selling the idea of let's give Dame the biggest contract in history. Let's extend his contract 2 more years at like $55 million per year, like he's Chelsea Clinton or something. And then we're also going to then try to rebuild around Dame, and that means fire selling some of their vets who they just brought in to help Dame in the first place in Robert Covington, Yusuf Nurkic. I'll just ask you, just up top, with those 5 guys, LeVert, Sabonis, Turner, Nurkic, Covington, any of those guys interest you right now in terms of, trades? Because this is what people always want to ask us about is like, hey, would you do this trade? Obviously, we are not Bobby or Masai because we wouldn't be doing this show at all. But any of those guys interest you?
Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, sure. They're all pretty good players. I don't think, the Pacers, any of those guys, you look at what the Pacers are going to want in a situation like that, and right away we're like, you got to find a third team. Because the Raptors aren't trading away Scotty Barnes. If you're making a win now trade, it doesn't make sense to include Siakam, especially in season. And then your cache of prospects, like two-ways don't really move the needle in trade. Malachi Flynn is probably a buy low for some other team, and I think he's a nice redraft candidate, but I don't think he's like the core piece in the deal.
I like Malachi a lot. Right now, in terms of value, he's in the $5 bin.
Yeah, and
maybe
like
even the $1
even
bin.
Precious would be a tough sell since he was the Lowry return. So you're looking at, okay, you got to get a third team in here who maybe has something that Indy likes, and you're probably talking pick equity, which is fine, but it means you better be sure, and this is what drew my attention most about this Pacers news. You better be sure you're getting in the playoffs. And if the Pacers are bowing out here, that means the East playoff race is down to 12 teams for 10 spots, and every team is within a game.
Yeah.
Game and a half, sorry.
Yeah. So you're talking about Detroit, Orlando, and now Indiana are not going to try to compete this year.
Correct. And there are probably 4 of those teams in the West. I don't think the Spurs would admit it, but the Spurs, when you watch them, admit it.
Yeah. A lot of Jakob Poeltl.
So right away you're looking, So there's 2 things here, right? Is like if the Pacers are bowing out, that means there are now 7 teams that say things continue to go poorly for the Raptors on the injury front, and you're like at the trade deadline, you have last year's mentality of like, hey, would it be the worst if we take care of some guys and like in addition to the Dragic trade, we see what's out there for Chris Boucher and stuff. That's there, but your path to like you're already behind in terms of your path to the bottom, and there's more teams getting in there. And then at the other end, if you're going to add, you've got a couple teams to jump, but it's tight. It's close, and you're there, and you have, there's a path to that for sure. So more than I don't think any of the Pacers guys are a natural fit. I know obviously Sabonis is awesome, and
people love Miles Turner. People love the idea of a 3-and-D center with this group, which I would also love the idea of a 3-and-D center with this group. Yeah,
and I think that Turner's limitations are things that you can kind of make up for when you have Siakam, Barnes, and Anunoby around, where like, hey,
what do you mean by that?
Well, just like sometimes the book on Turner is that he's not as aggressive and physical inside as you would like a big to be. So while he is a rim protector and a floor spacer, he's not necessarily like a bruiser on the glass or against those bigger center types.
Oh, he's a Brook Lopez type. The modern Brook Lopez, not the original.
Right. And look at how much the Raptors use that pick and pop or trail 3. Like, he'd fit really well offensively.
Yeah.
And defensively, even if it's not like the ideal version of what Miles Turner could be, like just any semblance of rim protection on this team, even if you're having Turner switch around a lot, like he's led the league in blocks multiple times. And the Raptors have nobody who's blocking shots right now.
Yeah.
So I would like that. I just, again, it's a situation where you're giving up pick equity, so you better be sure about the fit and the timeline for guys like OG and Kem, and you need a third team probably because your prospect equity for trade isn't all that spicy. Nurkic is an interesting one because it's really easy to get to the salary.
Yeah.
He only makes $12 million.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the Blazers are going to want in terms of, prospect or stuff like that. You could offer them Gary Trent. They know him well, but no, I think Nurkic he's a guy that if you're looking for, hey, who's a center the Raptors could try to grab in the offseason, maybe in their price range, Nurkic might be one. He's still only 27.
I like Yusuf Nurkic a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, Miles Turner is also low-key young too. He's only 25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think the asking price on Turner is probably higher, and because the salary's higher, it's a little tougher to, make everything click together. Obviously, Dragic is it's funny. Everyone's so mad all season that Dragic didn't get dealt, and it might turn out like, hey, something shakes out and suddenly his salary is pretty useful.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's why you keep him on Miami Beach instead of just letting him go. But no, Nurkic is a smart buy low there.
Sure.
I like Covington. I think it's probably like in terms if you're going to give up assets for it, it's a bit redundant with what you're trying to build with the guys you have. He's awesome though. Someone should poach him.
Oh yeah, no, he's going to a contending team, which is what he was supposed to do in Portland, I guess. But
and I just want Karis LeVert to end up somewhere like where his funk can thrive. Like
I was gonna say, why are they trying to trade Karis LeVert? That one's a little trouble. I guess like
he's
they have
27 too, where the other guys are low key young. He's low key like not a prospect anymore. Although someone in my mentions today referred to Chris Boucher as a young player you could throw in a trade in.
You know what? Let's just keep it that way. For any GMs listening, he is a young player. He's only in his 4th year.
Tons of upside there.
Lots of upside. I was gonna say, by the way, just really quickly on this. For me, the name that intrigues me the most is Turner. I think he's probably the name that intrigues most teams the most. Would you do Gary in a first?
Yeah.
Okay. So, just put that out there.
Yeah. I mean, your roster is pretty imbalanced after that, but I also think that like the Trent deal, the way he's playing is a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
And Turner is a more important kind of snap into what you have here. Like if you're looking ahead to, hey, the competitive window is next year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big swing thing here too, right? Is like any sort of addition like this is looking at not only the rest of this year and making a playoff push, but next year, hey, you're probably not going to be a cap space team.
Yep.
You're not trying to get Turner, even Nurkic, because Nurkic is a free agent next year. I think you would acquire him in part to get the bird rights, right? So you're looking at next year as well. And I think that also, if we find out they're interested and they're kicking the tires on this, I think it does tell us something about where they see the timeline for this group. And this is, to circle us back to the injury stuff. OG, Scotty, Fred, and Pascal have still only played 52 minutes together.
Yeah, I know.
Hard to tell what that group's going to look like. I mean, you could certainly be optimistic about it.
Sure.
But, and Turner, meanwhile, while Nurkic is a free agent whose bird rights you'd acquire, Turner has one more year at $18 million, which is a nice price tag.
Definitely. Okay, we have saved 3 precious minutes for the 905 update, which I think is actually appropriate, unfortunately. So they're 4-4 this season. They just split a 1-on-1 series with Washington's Capital City Go-Go, which is an elite name, I got to say. 905 is still better, but still. I mean, it's a 1-on-1 in the sense that they played one in Mississauga and they played one in Toronto. I caught parts of the loss at Paramount. I saw the one in full, in Scotiabank. Obviously, the one that's standing out to me is Delano Banton. Mm-hmm. Can we just gush about how good he looks at the G League level? I understand that, I literally made the joke that literally it's, LaBonga James down there because Isaac Bonga's looking incredible too. But Delano just looks so good. 30 points coming off the bench. And it's really the impact of what he's doing because he's so good defensively. The passes are really there. And he's shooting threes just like Nick Nurse wants.
Yeah, and he came into that game when they were down 20-0.
And then it was an immediate 17-2 run.
He was like plus 19 by the time the 905 had caught up. So
Unbelievable.
a few things stand out from this one. First of all, 30 points, but very efficiently.
Yes.
11 of 18. That was a lot of stuff at the rim, which if there's a criticism of Banton in his NBA minutes, and it's obviously a criticism that you're giving with the caveat that he's a rookie and a second round pick and he needs G League time, it's that pressure on the rim has only really come in transition. And he did a better job of that with the 905. I will say there was like maybe an element of selfishness to his game the other day. And I don't think it was necessarily like hey, I'm going to come out and get mine.
Mm-hmm.
But he'd been very turnover prone in his first two 905 games, trying to work more as a pick and roll passer.
Yep.
And I think where he kind of came into this one more as a pick and roll scorer, and they ran some pistol stuff to get him going with a head of steam at the defense. Maybe that's the path for him right now when he's down there is focus on the pick and roll scoring. We know you have the passing vision. We've seen it in transition. Add the scoring layer first, and then maybe the passing game comes a little easier out of there. And we've seen flashes. He had that one really nice pass to Precious Achua out of a Spain pick and roll the other game. Where it's just like, yeah, he obviously sees the floor and he sees the vision. It's just right now he's had some trouble turning the corner and navigating north-south at the NBA level. And that's where I want him getting the reps in the G League. And so far so good as a scorer, and especially in this one, minimizing the turnovers.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge for him because he can get a little bit loose at times. Like there was a play the other game where he was rushing the ball up the floor and he didn't see the help defender just coming over and catching him by surprise. Some of these things are just court awareness. I think he clearly has that. Malachi Flynn's also down there. Got 21 shots up. I got to say the first shift for Malachi with the starters, obviously, as you mentioned, they were down 20-0. That was bad, but I thought Malachi came back into the game. Third quarter was much better. Had like a 4-point play, had an and one drive at the rim, had a pull-up three-pointer. I mean, what is there left for Malachi to show at the G League level? Because he did get some time last year as well, even though it was only 6 games in the G League bubble.
Yeah, I mean, he just needs minutes, man. Like he really hasn't played much this year. And Nick Nurse was asked about that today. Like, what are you looking for from him? And it's the same thing we've talked about for a year and a half now, where Malachi is such a let the game come to you, feel it out between the tempos guy. And the Raptors want that position to be go, go, go. And they want that in transition on offense, and they want that on defense. Malachi's very good at keeping a man in front of him.
Yeah.
But Nick Nurse wants his point guards to get right into that guy.
Yeah.
And that's a different style of defense, and that's a different mentality. And I think Flynn's challenge is, how do you find that level of aggression where, your comfort level is at a little slower pace and, you don't shoot 7 of 21. Right. I mean, you never really worry too much about shooting percentages actually, you worry about good shooting percentages in the G League. You throw out bad ones. But yeah, I think that's his challenge is like, how do you ratchet up the pace kind of, and how do you ratchet up the aggression without losing what makes you you? And that's like, hey, you have a really great feel for the game when it slows down and you can kind of place things where you want them and pick them apart. You've got to kind of find a way to blend those two things together, because to be honest, I like Malachi Flynn a lot. An NBA team is not going to change their identity around the number 29 pick in his sophomore year who's playing spot minutes in the second unit.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I think that's a good spot for us to take a break. I'm your host, Will Lou, and you're listening to The Raptor Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptor Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, William Lou. I'm joined by Blake Murphy. And also joining us on the line is basketball coach and analyst from True Hoop, David Thorpe. David, how you doing?
Great. Thanks for asking. Hope you're doing well also.
I'm doing great. And listen, for people who know your work and are familiar from, your appearances, on True Hoop, I mean, we hear you all the time on the Low Post podcast as well. But really in Toronto, you know what you're known as. You're known as the Scotty Whisperer at this point because you were absolutely right on everything you said about Scotty Barnes. Not to say that you were the only person who knew about Scotty or things like this, but you had him number 2 on your big board coming into the draft when people in Toronto were still debating if it was between Suggs or Scotty at 4. And then you came on the Raptors of Everything podcast with myself when I was at Yahoo, and you detailed in great length all the strengths that Scotty has. And this is sort of before we got a chance to really see him play Summer League or anything like that. And turns out you're absolutely right. So, we first off just had to give you that respect off the top.
I appreciate it. I don't know why I'm not getting the same love in Cleveland. I had Mobley number 1.
Oh, wow. Well, you know what? That's something we can discuss, actually, because I think some Raptor fans are anxiously checking the Rookie of the Year race because Mobley has been as good as advertised. Well, at least as good as you advertised. But let's talk about Scotty first. So Nick Nurse has urged Scotty Barnes to take more threes about 2 weeks ago. And since then, he is 13 of 29, which is roughly 44% on 3 attempts per game. First off, why do you think Nick prompted Scotty in this direction? And second, what do you make of his progress so far as a shooter?
Well, I'll take the second question first. It isn't rocket science. The numbers are in front of us. It's not going to last, clearly, but it's a process. Mm-hmm. And until you start making some at a decent rate and missing some at a decent rate, you're really just going to miss them. And so this is encouraging that, he's starting to have some made streaks. He's in one right now. Just wait. He'll have some long missed streaks, too. He's not a great shooter. He's not even a good shooter yet. The reason why Coach Nurse is doing it is because he's a smart man. I'll go back a long time ago when I was at ESPN, and Henry Abbott, who became, the founder and my partner at True Hoop, he once asked me, why is Trevor Ariza shooting so many threes and missing all of them? This is way back when Kobe and Powell and Bynum were the big 3 in L.A., and I didn't know the answer. I didn't interview Phil Jackson, but I suspected that Phil Jackson recognized that for them to be champions, Trevor Ariza has to be on the court for his defense. And if he's going to be on the court for his defense, he's going to have to be a 3-point threat. There wasn't really much else he could do. And the only way that's going to happen in May and June is for him to miss a bunch of shots in the season and ultimately get enough confidence when they start going in and getting his reps in, showing up every day, working, that he'll be able to make threes. And sure enough, he ended up being a very good 3-point shooter for them by the end of the year. They won the championship. And until very recently, he was known as that, one of the original 3-and-D guys, along with Bruce Bowen from San Antonio. So I have a feeling Coach Nurse recognizes that long-term project-wise, for Scotty to be an MVP-level player, which I think he has the talent for, he's going to have to be a 3-point shooter, even just a decent one. And so why not start now? They're not risking a championship for it. There's only reward, no risk to this. The games they lose, not a big deal. And it turns out he's going through a nice little stretch. So he's doing the same thing I read the other day with Ben in the G League. Like, that's just super smart. That's why you guys are lucky to have a guy like Coach Nurse running your program.
Yeah, you can't have an Ariza situation where 4 years into his career, he's only attempted 43 threes. And it's like, well, he's not even comfortable trying it yet. And it's something the Raptors have gone through. They went through it with Pascal Siakam, too. He had one of the worst shooting seasons in league history before he became a capable 3-point shooter. My question to you, David, is at what point, obviously sample size is a thing, and 3-point shooting has a high stabilization rate, all that stuff. And we're going to look at more mechanically than just the numbers alone. But at what point would you become comfortable with saying, hey, this is now something that Scotty Barnes has added to his arsenal, at least at a show me level? And how much does your confidence increase when you see him also hitting off the dribble in addition to just spot ups?
Well, actually, Coach Nurse has his own methodology, so I'm not going to criticize him. But if he was a client of mine, which I have guys in the NBA, I would have asked him to only just catch and shoot threes right now. No step backs unless they're end of a clock. No off the dribble. Transitions are hard because you're racing, stopping shooting, that's challenging, but maybe I would let him do that. But mostly I would just want him to catch and shoot. And maybe shot fake side dribble three, because at the end of a clock, if they're kicking out to him and defense are going to dictate them to kick out to him, well, you better be able to have a weapon that can get at least a shot off before the buzzer goes off. So I think he should limit a little bit more just because he'll have more success that way. But I would never curtail him from doing it until you got to the postseason if they were lucky enough to make it. Then I might say if he was at, for example, 24%, let's not shoot threes now unless you're really wide open. But if he was 31, 32 and above, I wouldn't give him any limitation, again, other than what we already built in, which is limiting. He doesn't need to be shooting off ball screens when they go under a screen. Like, that's just harder to do unless he can show a propensity to do it pretty accurately. His shot itself, as someone who watched every shot he took last year, it was really problematic last year. It's clearly gotten more fluid, more consistent. He does a very nice job holding it. I think sometimes he, like most players, he kind of lets his arm drift to the right. I don't like when they do that. It doesn't mean it's necessarily moving the ball to the right. But normally, in my experience, when a player starts letting his arm drift left or right, it's because it was already moving that way to begin with, and then they normally miss the shot left or right based on where the arm's going. I like my guys to put their hand on the rim and leave it there. He's gotten better at that. He's just not, he's not there yet. But, we're talking about, he's 20 years old. So the average three-point shooter at 20 has taken just thousands, and I mean thousands more threes each day with purpose as part of practice than what Scotty's done. Scotty just had a different game. And so he got different reps and different work. Don't forget the fact that he lost hours, hundreds of hours because of COVID, hundreds of hours that he couldn't train or couldn't train with someone because in that very important part of his life, which was the time after high school and before college and then all through the college season last year, he really couldn't get into a gym or get anyone to be in a gym with him. So he's got a lot of reps to make up. And so the good news is it looks like he's doing that. It looks like with the time he's already put in, he's got that, again, the fluidity is better. In other words, the synchronicity of shoulders and arms and fingers and wrists, they're more connected than I thought they were at Florida State last year. There's still so much more work he has to do. An easy example, guys, would be, I doubt you guys have children old enough to drive. I have twins that are 20, so I do. And there was a period of time when they were 15 going into 16, which in America you can start driving at 16 by yourself. Well, I thought they had the requisite skills to drive. They knew all the rules and regulations and how the car operated. But there was just too many life experiences on a road that I thought they were not prepared for. So we didn't let them drive by themselves the second they turned 16. We made sure they experienced enough through either being in a car with us or driving on their own with us with them where they could kind of navigate it on their own. And then you just hope for the best. That's just pretty much how it works. That's kind of how shooting is. So even when he gets the skill part of the game down, there's so many more things going on in a shooter's mind that he just needs experience at. And I think he's going to be a fine shooter. I don't know when that'll be. But I just don't think when you look back on his career in 15 years, we're going to be saying he just never learned to shoot. I don't think that'll be the case for him.
Well, that's a tough analogy for you because you can't drive or shoot.
And I don't have children. Yeah, I'm surprisingly young and inexperienced at life. Actually, Coach, I want to ask you about just Scotty's usage in general because I've almost been – it's been hard to sort of lock him down into like what kind of I guess, role or archetype that he is as a player because he hasn't run many pick and rolls. He's only had, according to NBA.com's tracking data, 19 pick and rolls, just operating as the pick and roll ball handler, which is like comparable to Svi Mihajlovic, for example. He's had 11 total pick and roll finisher plays as, just as a screener. He's had a handful of post-ups, a handful of isolations, but there's not really one area of his game that's really like, hey, that's exactly what he does. Like he's a spot-up shooter or something like that. What do you see as the best role or the best way to use someone like Scotty?
Well, so there's the now and there's the later. Now, I think they're geniuses. Whoever is coming up with the offensive strategy in Toronto, and you can say, Coach Nurse, I have no idea who's their offensive coordinator. Genius. Last year, the Warriors and I'm not criticizing them. They're obviously a great franchise when you look at what they're doing. They folded too much into James Wiseman's lap and killed him. Absolutely killed him. And I wrote an article about as he was kind of coming around. I wrote an article where I thought they finally understood, take everything off his plate and let him be Clint Capella and just play off everybody else, because you're asking to do so much already defensively at that position, which is every NBA player at that position is asked to do a ton. And then he got hurt, because I think he actually really would have come around last year when they took a lot away. I feel it's the same thing in Toronto. They're asking him to guard 1 through 5, and oftentimes he's matched up with the other team's best offensive player before they switch. So he's got that responsibility. He's asked to be a basketball player offensively, meaning make all sorts of reads and reacts and screen, roll, cut, all those things that he's doing, rebound. To also ask him to be a primary ball handler / decision maker, I think it's a bridge too far. And you're asking for too much of a backward slide. Life is, people talk about the rookie wall. I don't believe in the rookie wall. It's a roller coaster. They get exhausted from the roller coaster, but it is a roller coaster. It is incredible ups and incredible downs, and that's just on the court. Forget about what life is like when you're suddenly a millionaire in Scotty's case, and all the attention you get as a rookie, especially in his case, in a different country. It's exhausting. And so I think it's super smart to limit what he's doing to some degree. You also have other players that are allowed, OG, they're developing until he got hurt, and Fred's finding himself more, and now you're trying to get Siakam back. So there's other reasons why that's the case, but I think ultimately we're going to think of Scotty Barnes like we think of LeBron James and those kind of guys. I'm not suggesting he's LeBron James. What I am suggesting is, where are you limiting LeBron James? What is he? He's everything. Well, Scotty needs to be an everything guy. So everything you need to do in a game, I think they should be asking Scotty to do someday. What was Magic Johnson? He was everything. That's what Scotty needs to do. He needs to be able to impact the game in every way possible. And to focus on any one thing, I think, is a mistake. As it is, you guys have already seen, I'm sure, a big difference just from Summer League. Compared to his college career, he gets a matchup that he likes, and he operates. He never did that in college, almost ever. There was one play, in fact, I put in an article I wrote, I think maybe last week, where he got matched up one-on-one with Sabonis.
Yeah.
As you guys know, a big, strong dude. And you may remember, he took him on the right wing behind 3. He fiddled with the ball, he's a long way from being a good ball handler, in my opinion. That's something I think he should really be working at a ton. It's going to limit his ceiling until he gets it. But he fiddled with the ball enough where he suddenly kind of made a right to left, I think, through the legs and attacked Sabonis. And then the blink of an eye, he was down his throat at the rim for an and one bucket.
Yeah.
That is not something we saw Scotty Barnes do in college against anybody. He might have done it in practice. He didn't do it in games, really. That's a big step, because we know he bullies guards all the time. This was bullying Sabonis. That's a guy that gets it, that he knows he has to score some. His job is not just to be a passer like Draymond normally plays in Golden State. That's encouraging. And he just needs to continue to develop those kind of things slowly but surely.
Yeah, Coach. Now, I also wanted to ask you about just the rookie of the race in general, because this is shaping up to be an incredible draft class. Like, we're looking at lots of guys. We were just talking about Indiana in the first segment, and even Duarte, who's older as a rookie, but he's been very productive, and apparently Indiana wants to rebuild and recenter around him, I guess. How do you see the rookie of the year race shaping up? Because we saw in the first month, the Eastern Conference rookie of the month went to Evan Mobley. I think rightfully so. I think Mobley has played a little bit more high impact, especially on defense than Scotty. But just what do you make of this draft class just in general? Because this to me is looking like, one of those draft classes where you'll look back on it and we'll always talk about, I guess the class of 21 in the same way that you might talk about, 03 or, other draft classes that really stand out.
All right, so I think right now it's a 2-player class. I think it's possible that Cade Cunningham becomes a really special talent and not just maybe a borderline all-star. I honestly, the Pistons are so bad, I've not really watched him but a couple games. I need to watch more. Most classes are pretty solid. If we're talking about the rare class that has two legit Hall of Fame talents, yeah, this has that with Scotty and Evan. I would tell you that, and I don't want to upset you guys, and the question's fine. I get these kind of questions all the time.
Sure.
But I know you love your Raptors, and Scotty, I would tell you, am I allowed to curse on this?
Ideally, no. No.
Okay, I will not.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But you can guess what I would say. It absolutely should never be uttered out of your mouths again. Who flipping cares? You guys have one of the greatest young players in the world on your team. He's 20 years old, and he's one of the most joyful people to be around. I laugh when I'm listening to all these national commentators. You know, when you guys play on League Pass, which is every game pretty much, I don't get your Toronto production. I get the team you're playing because we don't get Toronto. I don't anyway. Maybe someone else does. And I just wherever you guys play, the announcers, the other team talk about what an incredible person they hear Scotty Barnes is. This is everywhere. And I doubt they're watching each other's shows. I think that he just has that reputation now, and deservedly so. This is one thing I was really high on about. He is just this rare person. I was told before I ever saw him play from his college coaches, before they ever coached him, they just recruited him, that you're not going to believe it. You're going to think it's fake. He's that kind of kid. My son told me long before I saw it on TV, no, it's the real deal. He's just this person, this really special. Like I was once in an elevator with Magic Johnson, and I've never felt electricity. I've been around famous people before, and maybe it's just because he was my favorite player growing up. I was a grown man. I was was 50 when I was in an elevator with him. But you could feel a surge of electricity when you get off the elevator. We all were talking about it. That's him. So who cares if he doesn't win the Rookie of the Year? I just cannot imagine caring about something less than I do about this stupid award. You have two incredible talents in this league. Maybe a third. Duarte's good. There's a bunch of good players. Sengun is interesting. Mm-hmm. Jalen Green, is terrible and amazing at the same time. Maybe you'll figure out how to limit the terrible part and really maximize the amazing part. I don't know, but it's not a surprise that they went on a win streak when he got hurt. He's a terrible NBA player who just looks fun to watch on YouTube. But you guys and the Cavaliers have these unbelievably special players. And one of them's going to lose the Rookie of the Year, and who gives a darn? Just be thankful you have this guy. I hope that, and I'm trusting, that no one in the Raptors organization cares whether or not Scotty Barnes wins Rookie of the Year or not. If it happens because it just happens, great. But they shouldn't be doing anything to care about it, nor should you guys care. I'll just be honest with you, I do a lot of radio shows around the country. Mm-hmm. Don't be greedy, guys. You got Scotty Barnes.
You know what? You're right.
Who cares? You got Scotty Barnes. Nothing else matters out of this draft class. Who wins it? The rest of the league, except for Cleveland, all wishes they had Scotty Barnes. And except for maybe Detroit, but they're wrong. They should want Scotty Barnes. They should have taken him or Evan, number one.
All right, fair enough. I appreciate your perspective for sure. All right, look,
my pleasure.
Coach, we have 2 more minutes left before we got to go, but I want to touch on Pascal Siakam because I'm a big fan of the True Hoop newsletter, and I was reading that, and I saw Pascal's name, and I was really delighted that you were, giving your insight on Pascal. I think it's been pretty clear since coming back, his defense hasn't been as sharp as sort of where it has been historically. What do you think has gone into that, based on what you're seeing out of the Raptors and Pascal in particular?
I just think I'm glad you liked it because I didn't expect to write that, but in studying tape, that's what I came up with. Mm-hmm. He used to be this fabulous defensive player, and now he's not. And I don't really know, honestly. His injury wasn't lower body. I speculated on my article that maybe if his arm gets hit a certain way, it hurts. I just hit on my shoulder before. I know, and it was always blocking shots or getting steals where it just kind of knocked off a pass. It kind of knocked my shoulder out of whack if it was at a certain angle. And so I don't know if it's that. I just think it's a really hard game, and he missed a long period of time, and he's carrying a big offensive load. And I think that part of the game's coming around. It looks like Toronto as a group defensively is coming around too. It's only been a couple games they played better defense, but they've been bad most of the year on defense. And part of it's because they're depending on a rookie. I mean, Scotty Barnes is incredible, but he's still a rookie. And he's a rookie asked to play great players every night, defend him in every position possible. Like, who does that? We've never seen that before, not just on switches, but in real lockdown situations. So I think Siakam he's not helped enough by some of his teammates, but I think it'll come. And if it doesn't, then it's a different story. But my point in the article, as you saw, it was to be patient. Let's see what he develops defensively. because there was a period of time where he was a super special talent there, and I don't think they should do anything until they figure out what they have with him again, on defense especially.
That's right. And as you pointed out, you should probably give it like 30 games, not 10, to evaluate what Pascal's been since coming back. All right, Coach, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you. We love hearing all these things about Scottie and just in general, your perspective and your wisdom on the game. So thanks for joining us, Coach. And, of course, to all the listeners, if you obviously listen to this podcast and listen to the Fan Morning Show with Blake Murphy, but when you're done listening to all that, make sure you check out Bringing In, the True Hoop podcast. It's also simulcast on YouTube as well, as most things are nowadays. But it's honestly fantastic. The newsletter is fantastic. I love everything True Hoop does between Coach Thorpe, Gerard Hector, Henry Abbott. It's just a really good production. So that does it for us on the show today. I've been your host, Will Liu, and you've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts, and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. As a reminder, we are now streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. So you can catch us there, or you can obviously go to Sportsnet's YouTube page and find the archived video. Thanks again to Blake Murphy and to David Thorpe, and we will talk to you tomorrow.